In today's video, my next in the series of drawing animals as letters of the alphabet is the letter T. And for T, we're going to be drawing this turtle using the iPad in Procreate. Just like all my videos too, it's in real time, no time lapse, no edits. You can follow along every single step of the way. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, everyone, so let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, I'm using a 4000 by 4000 pixel 300 DPI canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brushes today, I'm going to be using my creator set for Procreate. That's available for purchase on Gumroad. I'll leave the link down in the description below. I'm going to start out sketching with the Brainstorm sketch brush and then move over to the smooth inker once we add the inks. If you don't have these or don't want to pick them up, feel free just to use another one of your favorite brushes that comes with Procreate. And then for my color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made, so if you want to download the exact same colors that I'm using in today's video, you can find that for free on my website. The link for it is down in the description below too. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, I want to get my letter in here in the background. So I'm going to come up to my actions menu. I'm going to add text under the add subtool there, and we'll hit T. We'll double tap to highlight this and then tap on our font to change our font. We're going to change this over to Arial. It's not going to make a huge difference with a T, but since we've used Arial in this whole series, we'll stick with that. I'm going to grab my transform arrow there, and with uniform and snapping selected, we're just going to make this bigger and get that centered. Once we have the orange line showing up both horizontally and vertically, we know that that is centered. So with that done then, we're going to come up to the layers menu. I'm going to hold down on the text layer, drag that down underneath layer 1. We'll hit N to open the blend mode and drop this down to about 10%. Want to see it, just don't want it to be too dark. All right. Then back up here to our layer 1 to sketch with, like I said, using that Brainstorm sketch brush, and we're going to use the black for our color to sketch. Now, to begin with, kind of giving you the idea that I have layout-wise for this, we'll kind of have a top-down view of a turtle. We'll have the shell kind of this area, the head, of course, here in the middle, and then the crossbars of the T here will have kind of the fins coming out there, the legs in the front, and then the fin legs here in the back to kind of form that bottom part of the T. So now that we've got that figured out, we can go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is get the shell in here. So I'm going to start right here and do an oval. It's kind of elongated, holding down to lock it in. Now I do want this centered because we are going to use some symmetry here. So I'm going to use that transform arrow again. We're going to drag this over so that it gets locked in right there with that vertical orange line. Okay. Now that we've got that, I'm going to come back up here to my layers menu and we'll do the inside section of the turtle here. So I'm going to slide this to the left and I'm going to duplicate it. And then going back up to the arrow again with uniform. Actually, we'll go freeform this time. Get that selected. We'll start to pull in our inside portion of the turtle here. Just kind of making sure that this outer ring is the same distance all the way around. The gap in between the two lines is the same. Then we'll lock it in with the arrow. Just want to grab this and make sure that once again we've got it centered. You'll see here, now that we have two shapes, we get that blue line, basically showing that it's centered in the middle of that shape. And then it's also centered there in the middle there. Okay. Looking good. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead. Let's just stick with the shape here. I'm going to pinch these together. And then we'll go ahead and turn on symmetry now. So to do this, we're going to come up here to our wrench icon. And instead of going to add, we're going to go to canvas this time. And we'll go here to drawing guide, and we need to turn this on. Now when we do that, you'll see we get this 2D grid, which is not what we want. So we want to edit drawing guide, and we want to turn on symmetry down here. So now we've got that line in the middle there. So anything that we draw here on the left is going to show up on the right, and then vice versa. Okay. So now that we've got that, we're going to zoom in here just a little bit, and we will begin to Gonna add in some lines around here. Kind of judge here where the center is, and do a diagonal line this way. Diagonal line back down, and then connecting that across. And then where these meet, we'll just pull lines there from that center out. Okay. Looks good. We've got our shell done, so pulling back out, you can kind of see what we have here. Next up, let's go ahead and work on the fins, the legs. So I'm gonna kind of use this top line here as kind of a guide for where these are gonna go. So we'll start to pull these in. Just a really kind of loose line to get the feel here. And we'll start to bring this out and back in. So it's got kind of this nice chubby flare to it. Just like that. I need to pull it back a little bit. Then we'll probably do kind of like a taper line here, so we've got a little bit of a skin fold there. And we'll pull that back down into the body there. From here, I'll just kind of get a oval for the head just to kind of knock in where that goes. And then we'll move back down here to the feet, kind of get these in. Once again, we'll kind of do kind of a skin fold here. And pull these out and then back towards each other. And back in towards the body. We want these to be, about the same shape and length as the top ones there. Now I am going to go ahead up here to the layers menu and make a new layer because I want the tail in here, but I don't want everything to be perfectly symmetrical. So doing a new layer is going to turn off symmetry. You have to manually do that each time, and we'll just pull in kind of a curved tail there. I think that looks good. Okay, next up, let's go back to the assisted layer, and I'm going to twist the canvas here and work on the face. It's going to be a lot easier to do it straight on rather than trying to go upside down with this. So I'm going to get the eyes in here. Just get some ovals where those go. Just kind of darken those up and then get the pupils in there along with the irises. Do some eyebrows there. Then I think I want this kind of coming more at a point here in the front. And then we can also kind of pull out some cheeks here as it comes around, so that way that mouth going up there can kind of sit in those cheeks. We do a bit of a bridge right there, so that comes down into the snout. Pull some lines there. That's going to be pretty much it for the head then, and for the overall body. The other things we're going to add is we are going to do some spots in here, which we're not going to really spend too much time getting those in just because we're going to obviously redo those under the inking phase. But overall, I think that's a pretty good start then for our sketch. From here then, we're ready to move on and add the inks. So to begin the inks, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to our layers menu. I'm going to pinch all of these together so the sketch is all on one. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off our text layer there so we can get rid of that. I'm going to make a new layer on top of layer one. And then also on layer one, we're going to drop the opacity down on that. We're about 20, 25%. Looks pretty good. Once again, want it to be visible, but not too dark. All right. With that done then, we're ready to start. And I'm going to begin the same way. I'm not going to turn on symmetry to begin with. I'm going to switch my brush over to that smooth inker, and we'll use the 7% size on this. I'm going to zoom in here. We'll get the oval in here, holding down to lock it in, letting go, and then using the arrow here again for the transform just to make sure that this guy's centered. Okay. Same technique we used with the sketch. I'm going to slide this to the left and duplicate it. And we're going to grab that arrow again with freeform selected. We'll try to match this up as close as we can to what we had with our sketch. All right, once that's locked in, grabbing that arrow again just to nudge it, making sure the orange line's there and the blue line is there. Okay, looking good. We can go ahead and pinch those together then. And then let's go ahead now, let's make a new layer and let's turn on Drawing Assist for this one. Now this is where you might run into problems because since we didn't actually do a Drawing Assist for the ovals, and the reason why we didn't do that is if you try to draw an oval like that with Drawing Assist, you'll see you have multiple overlaps. So that's why we didn't use that. But when we draw these connecting lines, sometimes they might come out far enough on one side, but they might not match up on the other. So we need to be prepared for that. And we'll see how well these match up and then decide if we want to keep this with Drawing Assist. And you'll see here, that one's going out further. So if we erase this side then, what it's going to do is it's probably going to pull back a little gap there. So I'm not going to use Drawing Assist for this one. I'm going to continue on another new layer on top of the shell. And this is just something you'll kind of have to play around with. You might not know right away if it's going to work or not. So we'll get in our line here. And with this, you just want to be careful to make sure that these do look symmetrical from side to side. So you're stopping kind of in the same spot, starting in the same spot. And I'm using, obviously, the smooth inker for this because I don't want to go in and have to switch brushes. But for solid lines like this, I really recommend using just the regular monoline pen under the calligraphy section. With that one, it's not pressure sensitive, so you're not going to get different line weights depending on how hard you push. And like with this, you might get a different line weight at the beginning of the stroke and then at the end of the stroke. I'm pretty good with knowing how much pressure I'm applying, so I can kind of control that. But if you're having that problem, that's what I would recommend is the mono line. Okay, we're good there. We got the shell done. So let's go ahead then. We can go ahead and pinch those together. I'm going to leave the shell separate though, because this layer that we made, the assisted layer, that's what we're going to use here for the fins. But you're going to see as I start to do these lines, and I've talked about it before, I like to bring the lines further down than what they are. So to explain that, I'll kind of pull in this tapered line around. See, I like to go past where it needs to stop at, just so you don't have that kind of hesitation judder at the end of your lines. Being able to get those exactly where you need to is a lot easier if you don't have to do that stop there. Pull that one down. Same thing going back over top of that. And once again here, we're hitting that section with the symmetry. So you might have to go back to your non-symmetrical layer here with the shell and just kind of touch up an area like this if it erases too much. It's not adding it to this side because we're not on that symmetry layer, so that's why it works out. Okay, we switch back to the assisted then. Grabbing the brush here, let me twist the canvas around for the head here. We'll start to pull this back out. You can see I've got a little bit of a line there too. Zooming in now, I can see it a little bit better. That's one of the benefits of zooming in as far as you can, that you'll see little spots like that that you might have missed. Okay, start to pull this line back up into the head. Line there. And here's where you got to be careful, where these lines match up in the middle. You might get a funky overlap or a funky connection. That's one of the other trying parts of symmetry, is getting the middle parts to match up. Okay, let's get the eyes in here. With this, I like to start out with a light pressure and get heavier as I come around, and then lighter at the end. Just like that, so you get a wider one there at the top. Now with this, I'm going to switch this back over to the shell layer because I don't want to try to match up that snout coming in the center. So I'm just going to pull over align this way. That way I can also have a taper on the end on one side that's different than the taper on the other end. If I had symmetry turned on, they would look exactly the same on the ends there. Okay, let's go back to our, so let's stay on this one because you see here I've got a little bit of a funky line there where things didn't connect right because of the symmetry. Back to the symmetrical layer here. Get the ovals in here. Whoops, that looks a little crazy. Ovals in here for the pupils, and the line on the outside for the iris. And then here I'm also going to hold down on white in the background. Going to add in some highlights here, but I want to do these on a new layer because I don't want these to be symmetrical. So I want the light source coming in from this direction over here. So that way, having these like this is going to allow us to do it to where it's not mirrored and it looks like it's supposed to. All right. Let's go back to that assisted layer then. We can even pinch these together now that we've got those done. Get these eyebrows in here. I don't know if I want them more centered. I don't really want them to come up over, I think that's probably pretty good. I don't want them to come up over top of the shell, so I want to keep those fairly low there. All right, twist them back around so you can see what we have. Let's go ahead then and let's go down to our non-assisted layer again, layer 3. And we'll get the tail in here, zooming in so we can see here. Pull that around. Then zooming back out here, we can go ahead and switch back to our assisted layer, and we'll get these back legs in here. Pull these around once again. This one's not coming up all the way, so I'm going to go back to that layer 3. Just kind of connect the rest of that line. Back to our assisted layer here. Pull this line down and back. I'm going to stop, whoops. I'm going to stop right there because once again, the center line is going to be doubled. So I'm going to go back to my layer 3 now to do the center line. So that way I just have one center line and it's not trying to double itself. It just makes it a lot easier to control. Okay. Now we can go ahead and pinch all these together. I can turn off the text layer there. And then let's go ahead and let's start doing the little circles. This, I'm not going to worry too much about the symmetry. I'm going to turn on symmetry. I'm only going to worry about turning it off down here in the center. I don't want those symmetrical. So we need to turn symmetry back on with this one since we combined all those layers. So if we turn drawing assist back on, you'll see assisted pops back up there. We'll switch back to our brush here. And then actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and make another new layer and turn on drawing assist. That way, once I come in here and do these ovals, once again, we can come further out and we can erase those overlaps. So once again, we're not trying to stop those and having that weird kind of funky hesitation line at the end there. We get these in here. And once again, just coming in with the eraser. And hitting the overlaps. All right, we got those done. Let's come back down here to the bottom. Switch back to our brush here. With these, honestly, it's just kind of no real rhyme or reason to them. It's wherever they look good, and then different sizes coming around. And of course, this one, we've got the tail coming. So that one will actually have to pull back. and then we'll fix that other one here in a second. And then let's go ahead then and let's make another new layer that's non-assisted. We'll get some of these coming down the center. Actually, you know what? On this one, let's go ahead, let's go back to that one. Let's just completely erase this one. And we'll just do these completely on that non-assisted layer. I think that'll be more beneficial than trying to fix the other one. So you can pull this one kind of behind the tail and just stop it then. All right, looks good. All right, so back to that assisted layer then, so we can use the eraser and pull off the overlaps on the edges. All right, and pull them back out, you can see what we're left with. So there we go, there's our inks layer. From here, I want to add in just a little bit more detail around the shell. So we're going to pinch those together. They're back on one. And then let's go ahead and once more make one more new layer. We're going to tap this and turn on drawing assist for this one. And the difference here is I'm going to come up to my brush and my smooth anchor, and I'm going to turn off my stabilization on here. Because I want to come in here and just do some really quick kind of tapered lines coming around. Just like this. And with that stabilization turned off, it makes it a little bit easier to do these. I'm going to come in here a little bit tighter too. Just going to pull these around. Just really quick motions there. And you'll see some of these are overlapping too, so we'll have to fix those in a second. Some of them aren't coming out as far as they should either. All right, there we go. That looks good. So now we'll pull some of these back and see if it pulls all the way out or not. I think we should be okay on some of these. Got a little bit overlap on those two, I might fix. All right, so now let's turn drawing assist off on this one, and then I can just extend these lines a little bit. Actually, that one I might pull completely out there. Just redo it. Just pull that one completely out too. Same thing with this one. Okay, pull them back then. You can see what we have. Let me fix this one up here real quick. We'll turn off drawing assist on this one. Just erase that little overlap right there. Okay. All right, so there we go. Our inks are done. We've got everything ready for our color flats, so let's move on to that now. So to begin our color flats, we're going to come up here to our layers menu. First thing I want to do is pinch all of these together. So they're all on one now. And then we also want to tap this and set it as reference. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to make a new layer by hitting this plus button, dragging it under layer 3, and then anytime we drag in a color onto layer 4, it's going to use layer 3 as the reference of where that color should sit. And it's going to only bring it up to the edge of the line. So with that done then, we just need to come in here to our color palette, and we're going to go ahead and switch over to our green here. That's going to be our main color for our turtle. Once again, we're on that layer 4. We can, when dragging and dropping, we can then hit continue filling. And that way it just allows us to tap in here and we don't have to go in and do everything manually. All right. Now let's go ahead and let's turn on drawing assist on the color flats layer, because that's going to save us some time with this dark green. We'll use that for the spots, and you'll see that will fill in that other side there too. Of course, we can't use this on the ones that we didn't do symmetrically, like here, because it's going to be wonky there and fill in everything. So for these non-symmetrical ones, then we just need to turn off drawing assist, and then we can just do those manually. Okay. Back up to our color here. We'll use this lighter orange for the inside portion of the shell. We'll use the darker brownish orange for the outer portion of the shell. And then turning off the background color here, you can see we've got to work on the eyes. So I'm going to zoom in here pretty close, just because when we drag it and drop in this blue, we've got to make sure we get that in the iris. And if we are zoomed out, you're probably going to hit a line, and that's going to cause some problems. So we'll turn back on the background color here, and then you can see we've got our inks and our color flats done. Color flats going pretty quick. Those are kind of the easy section to do. So from here then, we're ready to move on and do our shadows. All right, so to begin the shadows, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to our color palette. We're going to switch over to this dark blue color. And then I'm going to make a new layer on top of layer 4. I'm going to tap this and set this as clipping mask. We're not going to turn on drawing assist for this one because with the shadows and highlights, they're not going to be mirrored from side to side. We're going to have our light source coming in from this top left-hand corner. So our highlights are going to be here on the top left side, bottom right. That's going to be where our shadows are. So now that we've got that decided, we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and let's just knock in this area over here to begin with. So I'll pull up, oops, I want to turn on my streamline again on my smooth inker because I did turn that off. So under stabilization, I'm going to turn that back on. And we'll just bring up some shadows around this back side. Connecting everything here. Once I've got it connected, I want to come up here to my layers menu. I'm going to turn off reference on layer 3. So that allows me to drag and drop the colors now here. If I dragged and dropped this without that reference turned off, it would have filled in that entire thing. I'll pull this back just a tad bit here. I kind of want this to not hit that big one. So it'll just hit the outside line on that one. Okay. Gonna continue on here. Following the curve of the shadows, the curve of the shell here. You'll see I'm just following basically the curves of the outlines that I've already got. That's kind of how I know where I want these to be, is following the curves that I've laid down with the outlines. That really kind of aids in knowing the flow of your shadows, in addition to where the light source is coming from. So there we go. Let's go ahead and pull one here around the edge of the turtle shell. Going to bring down the really big one all the way down, connect those, and then bring it all the way up the back side and connect. And once we've got those connected, then we can just drag and drop that color in. And as long as you don't have any open gaps in the lines that you connected, it'll just fill in that section and it won't fill in everything. If you're getting it to where it's filling in the entire shell, that pretty much just means that you've got a gap in there someplace, or you've got the color drop threshold turned up too high. And to explain the color drop threshold, let's go ahead and go back here to this fin. So if I bring around this line here, and this line here, I'm dragging and dropping this in, and I'm getting like a gap there along those lines. That just means the color drop threshold is not turned up high enough. So if you hold down your Apple Pencil, when you drop, you'll see a percentage there. If you slide it to the right, it gets bigger. Slide it to the left, it gets smaller. You just want this almost all the way filled up to 100%. If you're at 100% and it's filling in everything, you're too high. If you're at 97, 99 and it's filling in everything, you just want it below the level where it fills in everything. Okay. Continuing down here then. Bring in, once again, some tapered lines here, just matching the flow of the inks that we've got laid down in that inking process. And switching back and forth between my brush and my eraser just to kind of clean up my lines. Flipping around here so we can get in pretty tight to the face. Lines coming up here underneath the eyebrows. Lines here on the inside of the eyes. Get those kind of a little bit of a shadow there. So it's got weight there at the top where the lid is. Along there, and then a little bit there in the iris too. So it's not a solid blue color. Get that. Pull in shadow around the front of the mouth, the snout there. And then up here at the top. A little bit here underneath the mouth there, and I think that looks pretty good. All right. You'll see here too, I've got another line there that I missed. That's why I like to zoom in super, super close. I try not to do it too much in these videos because I know it's kind of hard to follow when you zoom a lot, but it is necessary if you want good looking designs. All right, so back to this one then. See, that's the nice thing with the clipping mask too, is you don't have to worry. You can extend those lines outside here because they're not going to show up. So much like we did with the inks and adding those extra layers in to be able to erase if they went out too far. That's kind of the beautiful part of clipping mask, is it works kind of similarly, that you don't have to worry about overlaps. Of course, with clipping mask, you don't have to go back in and erase those overlaps, but you get the idea. I'm going to go back to the layer here with the inks and just pull up that little overlap there a little bit. All right, pulling back, you can kind of see what we have here. I want to do just a little bit more in the turtle shell. So we'll hit along these sides. Oh, and I'm back on the wrong layer, so I need to switch back to my shadows layer here. It's a good thing I caught that before I got too far in there. All right, a couple shadows here, and then one here. It's a little one. Okay, there we go. So from here then we want to drop the opacity to see how this looks. Obviously we don't want to leave it a dark blue, so we'll bring that down to about, I think 34%. Looks pretty good there. It's not bad. Okay, and there's our shadows. So from here then we're ready to move on, do the exact same technique for the highlights. So let's begin that. So highlights, making a new layer just like we did with the shadows, tapping it, setting it as clipping mask again, and then selecting white for our color. Then you're going to see I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to do kind of some ovals, kind of like those for highlights on certain designs, and this is definitely one of them. Just to give that kind of shine of the turtle shell, having the Highlights reflecting off of those. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, the 11% one, and I'm gonna pull kind of a tapered highlight here. Same thing here, we'll pull in a tapered one coming down there. I'm gonna do that one more time. I want it a little bit bigger there at the beginning. I think that looks good. Can also pull some here around the sides. Zooming in a little bit, so I got a little bit better control over the flow of that line. Let's come closer to the left hand side there than the right. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe add in a couple more small ones down here. Just like that. Okay. Continuing on then, we'll go down here. A little one on the tail here. Pulling back up here to the feet or the fins or the legs or whatever you want to call them. Pull a little one there on the edge. Just want to stop this one before it gets into that shadow. Just kind of have it taper up there to the end where that meets. All right. And overall, I don't want to go too crazy with the highlights here, so I'm going to tap this, N for blend mode, drop these down, and I'm thinking maybe about 40% looks pretty good. Yeah. All right. One last thing I want to do is I've got a really heavy shadow back here. So it kind of loses itself when you have too much of a shadow in one area. So what you can always do is come in with the eraser and just kind of pull back the edge here and kind of have a rim light here coming around. So that way you've got two different hues up against each other, so you can still tell that there is a shadow there just because there is a break between those two hues. And I think it works a lot better to kind of break that up. And so it's not so heavy. I'm gonna pull in just a little bit of a tapered line back in, just like that. And I think that looks good. Okay. Finally then, I'm just gonna go ahead and make a new layer and grab a black color here, get this guy signed, and we will be done with today's video. So there we go. The turtle for the letter T. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much. If you like today's video too, do me a favor, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon to get notified when I post new videos in the series. So of course with this, we still got U through Z left. So if you do have any suggestions for any animals that you want to see based on those letters, definitely leave a comment down below. And if you follow along with any of the video tutorials, if you do a design based on one of these videos, definitely share it online. If you're on social media, post it there and tag me at BJDell. I'm on most of the social media platforms. Instagram is one of the ones I use the most, so definitely feel free to post it there so I can check it out. I love to see what you guys do by following along. So thanks so much. As for me, I can be found online, bjdell.com. And that's it for today's video. Until next time, keep creating.